How many discounts does USAA Auto Insurance offer? Too many to say here. Multi-vehicle discount, safe driver discount, new vehicle discount, storage discount, legacy.
How many discounts will you stack up? Tap the banner or visit USAA.com/auto discounts. Restrictions apply.
It's tax season, and at LifeLock, we know you're tired of numbers. But here's a big one you need to hear. Billions. That's the amount of money in refunds the IRS has flagged for possible identity fraud. Now here's another big number, 100 million. That's how many data points LifeLock monitors every second. If your identity is stolen, we'll fix it guaranteed. One last big number, save up to 40% your first year. Visit lifelock.com/podcast for the threats you can't control. Terms apply.
Thanks for listening to the Red Treehouse, where I tell you scary stories to keep you up at night. You can listen to the Red Treehouse wherever you stream podcasts. Just be sure to follow, like, and subscribe. Oh, and leave a 5-star review. The Red Treehouse is dedicated to my dad. I love you, Pop. In this episode of the Red Treehouse, I'm going to narrate a terrific short horror story, The Pit, written by David-Jack Fletcher. A huge thank you for submitting this original story. It's guaranteed to get under your skin and keep you up at night. You can find links to David-Jack's social media pages and more in the show notes. Now it's time to sit back, turn down the lights, pull up the covers, and pay close attention as I narrate The Pit by David-Jack Fletcher. I'm your host, Will. Welcome to the Red Treehouse. The Pit, written by David-Jack Fletcher. Elevator music drove Captain Stone crazy. The B-grade shit that radio wouldn't even touch. And that was saying something. He and his team rode down 10 floors to the pit, the elevator music sinking into his skin until his lip twitched. He flicked the cap on his lighter to distract himself. "Sup, Cap?" Sergeant Whitty Whittingham asked with a cocky grin. He knew full well Stone was pissed, having served with him for the past 5 years. "How long since last comms?" Stone replied, shooting Whitty a glare. The elevator display was blank, and the cables sounded rusted. Whitty cleared his throat, adjusted his backpack, and checked his tablet for the info. 6 hours, sir." Blake pumped his chest out. He was like that, always jumping in where his skinny arse didn't belong. Been on the team for less than a year, and still trying to impress everyone. Whitty snarled, and Blake's chest deflated. Stone gave a slight nod towards Blake, pocketed his lighter, and looked at the 4th member of his team. Tech specialist Valerie Bright, an ex-Army medic turned IT genius, avoided his gaze. She wasn't who he'd have picked if he'd had a choice, but she'd appeared on his roster, and he knew better than to question it. "Once we're down there," Stone said to Bright, "we head straight to the comms terminal and get the place switched back on." She nodded, raised an eyebrow. She was looking at the elevator display, still blank. "How do we know when we're down there?" "The gates of hell will open," Whitty said, flashing yellowed teeth. Everyone stared at him as the shoop-doo-wop of the elevator music grated Stone's spine. He sighed through it and pulled out his own tablet. The mission was clear, but he liked a second look when he could spare it. Find the comms, turn them back on, find the scientists, and find out what happened down there, in the pit. It was a lab, that's all Stone knew. Usually he'd get more info, but General Sims had stressed the confidential nature of the research going on down there. That normally meant some fucked up shit, Like the trials in Baghdad he'd had to clean up. Melted skin like candle wax dripping from the walls. The ding of the elevator brought him back to the here and now. "Okay, Bright," he said. "Get those comms back on." He stepped forward into a lobby, an open space with an abandoned reception desk and flickering halogens. Without a word, Whitty and Blake raised their weapons, M4A carbines, and took the offensive formation. "What happened here?" Bright asked. Between flickers, the halogens revealed the aftermath of a struggle, or a massacre. Stone crept forward, minding his step to avoid a trail of blood that stretched down a hallway into the distance. His eyes scanned the area, taking in the remnants of flesh and bone scattered across the lobby, fresh blood tracks dripping down the once white walls. "What? Shh," Stone whispered, nodding at Bright to shut the fuck up. This is why he didn't want her on the team. Too loud, too curious, too inexperienced. She tried to turn back, to jump back inside the elevator, but the doors had already shut, and they weren't opening even as she pressed the up button over and over. Blake and Whitty crept forward on the flanks, their weapons stretching out to the sides while Stone pointed his own carbine straight forward. Between them, the entire area was covered. "Sir," Whitty's voice wavered. "What's the shit all over the walls?" It wasn't the blood. Whitty knew what blood looked like, smelled like. He meant the other shit, and Stone had to admit he didn't have a clue. Stepping forward, his boots squelching on wet human remains, he reached for his radio. "This is Captain Stone of Alpha Team. We need backup down here, fast. Something..." His radio crackled. "Command." More crackle. "Whatever's blocking comms is also affecting the radio signal," Stone said. "It looks like moss," Whitty said. "Huh?" "The shit on the walls." Bright edged towards a wall, squinting at the dark green stretching across its surface. She raised a finger to the wall, but drew it back. "I'm no expert, but..." "Stay on mission," Stone said. "Bright, lead the way." She moved behind Stone, staying on his rear, and pointed over his shoulder. "According to the map I was given, we head down the northwest corridor, past the research labs, and there's a communication center down there." "You got a map?" Blake asked, his voice cracking. "We got jack shit." "I had to memorize it," Bright whispered and shrugged. Whatever they're doing down here, they didn't want to risk any information leaking. Stone raised two fingers and waved down the corridor. Blake and Whitty drew in close, still on his flanks, and they headed down the corridor as Bright had instructed. Behind them, the moss stretched down the wall. "How far?" Stone asked over his shoulder. Bright exhaled hard and swallowed. "Do you guys hear that?" "How far?" Stone repeated. He could hear it, but it was in the distance, whatever it was. His pulse was pounding in his ears, but he couldn't let his mind go back there. To Baghdad. To the fucking mess he had walked away from. This lab, this new mess, was way too familiar. He had to stay focused. "It's like moaning," Bright continued. They crept forward, noting the walls and the ceiling were covered in that same dark green moss, but a bright-colored flower was blooming as well, hanging from thick vines, like ropey tendrils. Stone asked for a third time how far the comm center was, and got nothing in reply. He didn't want to break formation, but spun around when Bright pulled on his arm. "Bright, His question was cut short as a green-black creature scurried across the floor. The fuck was that? Whitty and Blake turned around, guns aimed at the floor. Another creature scurried past, squeaking. Blake shot at it, a short burst echoing through the corridor. "Hold your fire," Stone ordered. Blake had missed it, his finger cocked and ready to go when the order was given. His breathing was heavy. "Sir, what if it's that thing that killed all the scientists?" "We don't know they're dead," Stone replied. "Sure, because the blood trails and piles of discarded organs are just a Halloween snack," Whitty growled. Anyone else would have been punched in the mouth, but Stone let it slide. Whitty was right. So was Blake. The scientists were dead. That much was clear. And now this creature was scurrying around. He saw movement again. The moss was growing, but something was shifting underneath it on the floor. "Fire," he said, and the three of them squeezed harder than needed on their triggers. The creature raced across the floor, dodging bullets, as the team moved towards it, tracking its movements and missing. "It's fast, Cap," Whitty yelled over the fire. "Too fucking fast." "There!" Bright pointed in another direction. Stone spun. Another one. A different one. He fired at it, saw another one in the corner of his eye, crawling down the wall like a spider. Except it had 4 legs and a long-arsed tail, like a nightmarish rat. It jumped at his face and he blew a round of metal into its guts. It exploded in a mess of green gunk and black blood. Behind him, Whitty and Blake were firing on a horde of the creatures, Bright hiding behind them and covering her ears. He joined his team, watching as more and more creatures exploded. It didn't make a difference. The creatures seemed to explode only for the pieces to be absorbed into whatever was left, making more of itself, whatever it was. "We gotta move," he cried, pulling Whitty and Blake back. Bright didn't need to be told. She raced away from the horde, shouting at them to follow her to the comm center. "No time," Stone argued. He shouldered the nearest door. It didn't budge. "Fuck!" He tried again. Whitty and Blake trying other doors until Blake fell through an open office door and called to them. Whitty was in, still shooting at the rat-like creatures coming up on Stone's arse. Bright was in front of him, her long brown hair flicking at his face. She stumbled on something, her face hitting the floor with a thump. Grabbing Bright's wrist, Stone pulled her up and heaved her into the room. He crossed the threshold and Blake slammed the door behind him, clicking a feeble lock. The creatures converged at the door, their little feet clawing at the space between the base of the door and the linoleum flooring. Stone stared through the opaque tempered glass of the door, saw the creatures piling up in a pyramid formation, searching the door for a way through. "Jesus Christ," Bright said, cowering to the back of the room. "Barricade the door," Stone ordered, and Whitty and Blake jumped into action. Their carbines swung at their backs by a strap as they raced to the heavy oak desk and slid it across the office to the door. Stone found a cabinet and piled it on top, jamming the door in place. "The glass won't hold forever," Blake said. "Probably a few minutes," Whitty added. "We have to find out what happened here," Stone said, turning to Bright. "Where are we?" Bright shrugged, shaking her head. Stone grabbed her by the shoulder. "Where are we? What were they working on down here? What is this place?" "I don't know." Her voice betrayed her, and Stone saw the look in her eyes. She knew all right. She fucking knew. "Don't make me ask again," he said, laying a hand on his hip. Blake's eyes followed, saw the gun holstered there. "They didn't tell me," she said. "Just that it was genetic research. I swear that's all I know." The creatures at the door piled higher and higher, the pressure building on the door. Stone knew he had to table the discussion. They had to keep moving, get back to the elevator, and get the fuck out of there. The mission could go to hell. "Whitty, Blake, find us a way out of here," he said, his eyes still fixed on Bright. "Sir." Blake pointed skyward. "Vents." Stone nodded, and Whitty bent on one knee, got his hands ready to hoist someone, anyone, up. Bright was first. She pushed through the vent and climbed in like she'd done it 100 times before. Stone tabled that too. He'd figure out what was going on here, but right now he had to keep his team safe. Blake was next. "Cap, you're up," Whitty said. Stone knew he should be last, but time was of the essence. Looking back at the door, the tempered glass was beginning to crack. The rat things would be inside in less than a minute if he had his guess, so he stepped into Whitty's hands and let his soldier hoist him up. Maneuvering himself around, he outstretched his arms for Whitty. Their hands connected, a firm grip around each other's forearms. As Stone lifted Whitty, the creatures broke into the room, spilling over each other. A tidal wave of green, moss-covered vermin, squeaking and squealing for dinner. "Fuck!" Whitty screamed, and shot a few bursts at the creatures as Stone pulled him into the vent. Checking over his shoulder, Whitty screamed again and scurried backwards into Stone, who peered beyond the vent to see the rat things climbing on top of each other, like a bridge, until they'd closed the gap. It took seconds, the rats acting fast and with purpose. "Blake, get Bright to the comm center," Stone shouted as he and Whitty shot at the vermin once more. As the creatures kept coming, kept exploding, Stone saw the moss splattering the interior of the vent was spreading. Dark green and black spots stretching into a flesh-like covering. Their rapid fire was making a dent in their numbers, and Stone ordered Whitty to go on ahead. Make sure Bright got to the comm center. "I'm right behind you," Stone said. He heard Whitty crawl away as fast as he could and kept firing until his round was out. He replaced his cartridge and fired again, shifting his body away from the vermin. They slowed up a little, and he moved away faster. He couldn't hear his team, but he couldn't hear much of anything. The echo of the gunfire in the vent sent a high-pitched buzz in his ears. On his stomach and elbows, Stone pushed ahead in pursuit of his team, trying to hear beyond the buzz. Nothing. Looking over his shoulder, he saw the vent was empty. No vermin, no rat things. Thank fuck. He kept on until the vent opened downward somewhere along the way. "Cat!" Blake waved him down. The buzz was fading and he made out some words from Blake. "Comm center. Couldn't navigate. Vents." He got the gist. Bright couldn't navigate in the vents, so they jumped down and hoped for the best. He looked around. No sign of vermin. No sign of anything, except a bunch of computers in a research office that looked oddly untouched. The moss covering hadn't reached this part of the facility, nor had the creatures. We'll continue right after this quick ad break. "Sir," Whitty interrupted, "I found something." He headed to Whitty, who was hunched over a computer screen. "It's a video diary." Whitty hit play on the file, the name Dr. Daniela Vanguard, Ph.D., appearing in the top right of the screen, along with the date. "Yesterday." Looking directly into the camera, she spoke. "The moss was discovered in a remote section of the Amazon. That's the rainforest, not the website." A smirk. "It's a new species related to Trichoderma atroviridi, a fungus used to treat ovarian cancer. The fact that this is moss and not fungus is incredible. It seems to be a unique mix of the genetics of both Trichoderma atroviridi and sphagnum moss. Sphagnum was used in World War II as an antiseptic and has incredible healing properties. Traditionally, moss and fungi are incompatible, so the fact that we have a species here that is essentially a genetic child of both is beyond words. Nature is truly a beautiful thing. If we can harness the properties in the species, we may be able to create a suite of new medical treatments, rendering current medicine, I don't want to say obsolete, but..." Vanguard looked away from the camera for a moment in contemplation. "The first 6 months of testing on rats has given us incredible data. Subject X15 was also successful. She improved dramatically, and her cancer cells have decreased by 80%. But Subject X16 showed dramatically different results. His condition initially appeared to improve, but after only hours, he deteriorated. We have a theory, but I'm not ready to speculate without more data." The diary entry stopped, freezing on Vanguard's image as she stared into the camera, looking somehow both unsure and hopeful. "Great," Bright said. "So we know the things out there used to be rats. But what about those other two, subjects X15 and 16? Should we be worried about them too?" "We should be worried about one thing," Stone said. "Getting out of here." "Except we're lost now," Blake said, and thumbed over to Bright. "She's got no idea where we are. There were too many twists and turns in the vents, and there ain't no 'you are here' signs on the walls." Whitty turned back to the computer while Bright and Blake theorized their location and tried to establish a possible trajectory based on the map in her head. A few clicks later, and he ushered Stone's attention back to the screen. "Another diary?" he asked. Whitty nodded. "From 3 hours ago." He clicked play. Vanguard was talking in short bursts, fast like word vomit. "It's clear that this strain is highly adaptable. It finds the genetic weaknesses and heals them. It does what we suspected, but much, much faster. And with purpose, like it's conscious. I don't know how that sounds. I don't know how else to say it. Don't let it touch you. One touch and it can get inside you. It will change you. The others are all gone. Changed into, I don't know. I can't explain it. They're monsters. Their eyes. Their eyes." She paused at a bang in the distance. Her face hardened. "I'm the last one left. If any of this stuff, this moss, gets upstairs to the world, I won't let that happen." She paused, her eyes beyond the camera, tracking a noise that made her recoil. She jumped out of her chair, grabbed a backpack of some kind, and held an attached nozzle. Fire. The oldest weapon in the world. It works for now, but at the rate this thing is mutating, it won't work for long. I'm going to destroy the lab. Don't send anyone down here. Let it die with me. That's the last file. Whitty scanned the computer just in case, but came up empty. "The fuck is going on, Cap?" Stone turned to Bright, who had been watching the screen with an intense fear in her expression. Her face said she didn't know anything of importance. Maybe she really was an IT technician. Except none of this made any sense. "I think," Stone said, "that we've been sent here under false pretenses." "No shit," Blake said, then shot his eyes toward Stone. "Sir." Stone waved it off. Vanguard was sending messages to someone upstairs. That means they knew what happened and still sent us down here. The mission, he cocked his head towards Bright, is bullshit. They don't give a fuck about comms. They wanted us down here. "Why?" Bright asked. "Exactly," Stone said, and unholstered his pistol. "Who are you really?" Bright raised her hands and shied away from the gun. "I haven't lied to you about anything. I thought I was here to fix the comms." "Why send a tech specialist down here, huh? There's a lot more going on here than the comms being down. You know more than you're saying." Stone's face was an inch from Bright, who flattened herself against the wall. "I'm not lying to you. I'm terrified. I'm not equipped for this shit. Why are you so suspicious of me?" "Because you're the only one I don't know. Whitty over there is a sociopath with a penchant for explosives, and one of my best friends. Blake is a patriot with a hard-on for seahorses. But you? I don't know shit about you, Miss Valerie Bright. General Sims called me a few hours ago. He said there was an urgent mission down in the pit. He said they'd lost contact with the scientist and they were concerned. That's the word he used. Concerned. He said there was a team, you guys, ready to go down and check it out, but they needed a tech specialist to go with them. Whatever this is, she motioned around. I have no part in it. I just want to go home. The thought of home was like an orgasm in that moment. Stone wanted nothing more himself. Sit on the couch, chug a cold beer, and drown his consciousness to the shit on TV. Heaven on earth. Okay, he said. Let's go home. Whitty and Blake nodded, and Bright sighed as Stone's gun came down, facing the floor. I do like seahorses, Blake said to Whitty with a smirk. And I am technically a sociopath, Whitty replied. An old cap over ears, head over heels for John Goodman. Likes himself a bear, he does. No judgment, Cap. I bet Goodman would be all over your arse. Stone glared at him. No pun intended. I don't know which, role you take. We can't be too far from the elevator. Bright, do you think you can fix it? She nodded. Maybe. If I can get a look at the wiring and figure out the internal system, then yeah. It was good enough. As good as any plan, even if it was half-baked. With a fixed stare at Woody and Blake, the team knew the mission had changed. Let's get the fuck out of here. Stone headed to the nearest door, opened it as softly as he could. He didn't know what was on the other side. He only knew he had to be ready for whatever was out there. And yes, John Goodman is my dream man. I do indeed like a berry man. Carbine at the ready, he entered the corridor. The walls were covered in moss, the strange red flowers blooming even as he took his first step. From the ceiling, vines dangled. The floors were coated in a thick, fleshy green. He remembered what Vanguard had said. Don't let it touch you. He stepped further into the corridor, searching for any sign of their location. He was conscious of Woody stepping out behind him, followed by Bright, who was covered by Blake. The silence made Stone's gut flip. Something was out there, in the moss, watching them. Stay low, stay quiet, he whispered, and moved forward. A low grumble came from behind him, and he assumed it was Woody stifling a snide remark. That guy needed to learn when to shut up. Another grumble, and Stone cast an angry eye over his shoulder. Woody looked at him. It wasn't me, Cap. They inched forward again, mindful of their boots pushing against the moss, wondering if it was conscious, like Vanguard had said, and if so, what was it thinking? Another grumble just up ahead. Cap, said Blake. Stone didn't respond. Didn't have to. He saw it too. At the end of the corridor, a figure clad in green, a white coat etched with blood and grime and dirt, indicated they used to be a scientist here. They stepped towards the figure, who grumbled again, stood slightly askew like it didn't know how to stand. One of its arms was longer than the other, hanging loosely towards the floor. Stop there, Stone demanded, his voice deep and firm. The figure turned to them. It's too... I said stop, Stone, hell all of them, knew it was no good. The figure kept coming. Lay. Don't let it touch you, Woody mumbled. Stone nodded. He dropped his carbine and opted for the pistol. He aimed and shot one bullet into the figure's head. It rocked backwards, its cheek exploding from its face in a mess of green and black goo. Fleshy, pulpy moss hung from its face, stretching and pulling but not falling to the floor. Don't take another step, Stone warned. Too late. Stone shot again. The figure's chest exploded as the bullet pierced the flesh. Tendrils of moss branched from the wound as the scientist collapsed. Blood spewed to the floor, and as Stone swooped towards the figure, gun trained on its back, he saw the blood spiraling through the fleshy green floor, and in its place, a red flower. Two. The scientist kept on until Stone put 3 bullets through the back of its head. Another red flower grew from the floor, opening to reveal a fluorescent yellow center as Stone kicked the corpse over to its back. Dr. Stevenson. Stone made out the name on his coat. One of the original team, I'm guessing. Dark vines began to poke through the bullet holes in Stevenson's chest, ropey things that stretched into the air as if sniffing their surroundings. Stone stepped around the corpse as the vines followed him, snaking through the air. The fuck? Blake said, his voice hoarse. One of the vines changed directions, moved towards the sound of Blake's voice. Stevenson's corpse suddenly lifted into the air, held up, suspended by nothing but vines as more and more shot from his chest and melted into the moss on the walls. Stone was trapped on one side of Stevenson, his team on the other. Too late. Shut him up, Blake yelled, his carbine unsteady in his hands as a vine snaked towards him. Subject X-16, Stevenson murmured. I can't get back to you, Stone said, unwilling to risk touching the vines or Stevenson. Find another way round. I'll find the exit and get this place mapped when I find you. The 3 of them stood staring at Stevenson. Go! He waited until they'd retreated and then readied his carbine. Stevenson, you sorry motherfucker. I'm sorry." With that, he squeezed the trigger and watched Stevenson rip apart with each bullet until his body was a mess of disembodied limbs and organs being sucked into the mossy floor. Stone moved to run past, to catch up to his team, but Stevenson began to regrow, coming back as something else, some weird version of humanity. Arms and legs misshapen muscles, inverted knees, red flowers spawning from the joints as they cracked into place. "I am eternal." It was Stevenson's voice, but Stone could tell it was something else speaking. The eyes were like black voids, somehow staring into Stone like it knew him, like it was him. Finding his way around impossible, Stone ran. As much as he wanted to fight, to kill, he could do nothing but run. The Stevenson creature came after him, legs like mossy vines denting the floor, hands scratching against the walls, absorbing the moss into itself, making himself grow stronger, larger. "Fuck this," Stone cried as he ran, blindly turning corners in a bid to lose the creature behind him. It came up fast, grabbing at him. Stone felt the whisper of a finger on his neck and ducked low, rolling to the left into what he hoped was an empty room. The creature barreled past him, too big to stop quickly, and Stone scanned the room. Some kind of research space, full of computers but also geeky science shit. One of those centrifuge things. They'd had one in Baghdad too. They'd used it to mix compounds, which meant there were chemicals around here. Stevenson was slowing down, and Stone thought fast. Vanguard had said fire would kill it. If he knew how to do anything, it was how to make a fire. We'll continue right after this quick ad break. Pulling open cupboard doors, he saw bottles of liquids, but the labels might as well have been in gibberish. He just needed an alcohol solution. Throwing bottle after bottle behind him, he found one at the back. Methanol. Thank fuck. He grabbed it, unscrewed the lid, and looked around again. Stevenson was coming around, his arms now more like mossy tendrils than anything he'd seen before. His white coat hung awkwardly from his new body, the vines from his chest acting like legs, gliding him along the floor. "Eternal," he said again as he entered the room. Stone edged towards the creature, pouring the liquid over him, splashing it across his face and vine-like arms and legs. Stevenson looked down at the liquid and smiled, flashing teeth that were less bone and more fibrous stalks. His tongue leached out of his mouth as he drawled, "Eternal," once more. "Yeah, I get it," Stone said. "You're eternal." In that moment, he knew two things. He had one shot, and he sure as hell was not eternal. He acted anyway, knowing the odds were against him, that he was most likely about to die. He rushed Stevenson, shouldering him into the nearest wall. They fell together as a mess of tangled arms and vines, Stevenson's body wrapping around Stone like branches on a tree. He fought against the creature, reached inside his pocket for the lighter. One spark, just one spark. Pulling the lighter free, one of the tendrils knocked it to the floor and lifted Stone into the air. Eternal. It brought him close to its gaping, salivating mouth, the vines pivoting to point at Stone like spikes ready to tear him apart. "Fuck you," Stone said and closed his eyes. "Nah, fuck him," Whitty called, and Stone heard rapid fire around him. He fell to the floor with a hard thud, grabbed his lighter, and flicked the cap. "Like I said," Stone grinned. "Fuck you." The flame was so small, but Stone knew the damage one spark could cause. He threw the lighter at Stevenson and watched as the creature exploded into orange and yellow flames. Arms wrapped around his torso and shoulders, and he let himself be dragged back into the corridor. Blake slammed the door shut as tempered glass shattered around them, shards slicing their skin. "You okay, Cap?" Blake asked. "We saw that thing get up and chase you, so we came right back." Stone nodded and watched Stevenson screech and squeal as the flames burned him into nothingness. "Fire still works," he said. "We need new weapons." Guys," Bright said from behind them. They followed her gaze and saw the horde of vermin coming towards them. "They must be attracted to the heat," Whitty said, pulling Stone to his feet. "But the fire?" Blake asked. "We don't have time to sit around and theorize," Stone said. "Keep moving. Find that exit." The flames were larger now, and Stone tore off his shirt sleeves. Wrapping one around his carbine, he held it into the fire until the fabric was alight. He flung it towards the horde, hoping it would fend them off. The team watched the rats evade the shirt, but they continued in their pursuit. The floor itself, mossy and fleshy, made popping sounds like it was in pain. The shirt sank into the moss as a crater appeared. The moss moves away from the flame. The rats kept coming, and Stone raced away with his team. They sped down the corridor, leaving Stevenson to burn and the rats to follow them. "Bright, do you recognize anything?" Stone asked. They'd found the kitchen, which Stone hoped Bright could figure out their location in the facility. "There are several kitchens," she said, "but I did see a sign in the corridor that the moss hadn't covered yet. It read Animal Management. That's where we are now, so if I'm right, we're in the middle of the facility. The elevator should be easy to get to from here. 2 rights, then a straight shot for about 600 meters, and then it's on the right." "Animal Management?" Blake cocked an eyebrow. "Subjects X-15 and 16, Bright mumbled. "Whatever they are." "It doesn't matter what they are," Stone said, and slumped against the kitchen wall. "But we can't let this shit get to the surface." He paused and looked at his team. "We need to kill every last thing before we think about going home." "Cap." "That's an order, Whittingham," Stone snapped. He rubbed his eyes inside. "We don't know how long fire is going to kill it. Vanguard was right. It is adaptable. It's changing. Look what it did to Stevenson. Imagine a whole world of those things. Hell, even the rats could destroy civilization as we know it." Whitty looked down and nodded. "What's the plan, Captain?" Blake asked, his chest puffed out again. "We blow the place up," Bright said, reading Stone's face. "Right?" "Fucking A." Stone smirked. There was silence for a few moments, and then Whitty laughed. "You guys are serious?" He didn't wait for a reply. "I guess my skills can finally come in useful." The only surefire way to blow the shit out of the place, according to Whitty, was to set explosives in specific target areas. "Okay," Stone said. "Whitty, you're with me. Blake and Bright, you two head straight to the elevator. Get it fixed before me and Whitty get back. I'm giving us 10 minutes. He watched them disappear into a corridor and vanish into a sea of green moss. More and more flowers were growing, and Stone didn't like it. So far they hadn't done anything, hadn't been anything but a pretty, albeit weird flower. "Cap," Whitty asked, taking small explosives from his backpack. Stone turned to him, didn't bother asking how they worked or what to do. He'd worked with Whitty long enough that he didn't need to ask. Whitty would get it done. All Stone had to do was make sure the guy made it back to the elevator alive. "Lead on, Whitty," he said. "I'm on your tail." Whitty's eyes always betrayed him. It was why he'd not made it to captain yet. A poker face for shit. Right now, it was telling Stone he had a plan. He knew exactly where to go to make the most of the explosives, and that was good enough for Stone. They started for the corridor, heading in the opposite direction Bright and Blake had gone, when Stone felt the floor vibrate, like something heavy had taken a thudding step. Raising his carbine, he scanned the area. "I don't like this," Whitty said, his voice hushed and wavering. "Let's go," Stone replied. They headed off down the corridor as another heavy thud boomed behind them. Over his shoulder, Stone saw an unfortunate familiar sight. 2 more of the researchers, just like Stevenson, barreled towards them, their mouths hanging open. A deep hum echoed down the corridor as Stone pushed on as fast as he could. "Eternal." Whitty stopped suddenly and dropped to his knees. Reaching for an explosive, He thrust it hard into the thick, mossy flooring and switched it on. A red light began to flash, tinting the green around them. "Done," he yelled, and was on his feet once more. Stone was on his tail as the researchers came closer. He sprayed some shots over his shoulder, knowing it was no good, knowing fire was the only way, but trying regardless. He was a soldier. That's what he did. The vines that carried the researchers licked at his heels now, and Stone dove around a corner, following Whitty, who was several paces ahead. Stone saw him turn around, his eyes fierce and wide, but waved him on. "Set the explosives. Don't fucking stop," he ordered. Whitty kept on, and Stone sprayed more bullets at the researchers. "We are eternal," the researchers said in unison. Their eyes were just empty sockets, but as Stone stood, firing into their bodies again and again, he saw the red flowers blossoming out of the eye holes, growing into their faces, the stems dangling and spores falling like tears. Stone raced after Whitty, saw another red light flashing, and knew his comrade was well on the way to planting the next one. Turning another corner, he saw Whitty up ahead, knee-deep in moss like it was sucking him down. "Cap!" He reached for me as his waist sank into the floor. Without stopping to question how that was possible, Stone ran to him, dropped his weapon, and pulled at Whitty's torso. "It's eating me!" Whitty's words came through bile and blood as the moss sucked Whitty deeper into itself. Stone pulled harder, feeling his own knees start to sink, until Whitty was torn free and his knees were ripped from the moss with a wet squelch. They fell back together, Whitty on top, and Stone pushed him off. "Come on," he said, and pulled his feet from the moss. Whitty didn't move. Stone turned to face him, saw a stream of deep red blood and entrails gushing from Whitty's torso. His lower half was still being sucked into the moss. "Fuck," Whitty managed. "This place." He thrust his backpack into Stone's hands and glared at the captain with his dying eyes. With the researchers coming up fast, Stone didn't have a chance to say anything, least of all goodbye. He just grabbed his weapon, which was slowly sinking into the moss, and ran. One more explosive to set, then back to the elevator. "Fuck," he thought. He felt the researcher's breath on him, felt the vines in their thick, dead, mossy fingers grabbing at his shoulders, and pressed on. He didn't realize he could run that fast and he wasn't about to stop. Turning another corner, he wasn't sure where he was, but it didn't matter. If he didn't make it out, it didn't matter. As long as these fucking things died down here, that's all he cared about. He slipped on some moss, tripped over something, and saw more red flowers growing in the spot he'd fallen. He guessed the flowers were the first step in creating an environment, some kind of terraforming so the moss could live down there. Not just live, thrive. One of the researchers, Jones by the name on the coat, grabbed him off the ground and lifted him to their face. It said, sniffing him. "You will make a fine addition." Stone recoiled, fought hard against Jones, but it was useless. The other, Vanguard. She didn't make it. Joined them, the vines it used as legs spiraling out like webbed hands to wrap around Stone like a cocoon. If he'd known Whitty as well as he thought he did, there was a good chance the backpack was full of shit he could use. Wriggling his hand through the canvas bag, his fingers felt something he recognized. Pulling it out with a smile, the researchers smiled back. "Yes," they said in unison. "You are happy to join us." "Oh yeah," Stone said, as the vine squeezed around him. "Real fucking happy." He managed to bring his hands together, pulled the pin free, and thrust the object into the mouth of Jones. "We are." "Yeah, I know," Stone said. "So are grenades." He braced himself for the explosion and watched as the mossy Jones creature blew apart, its face splattering against the walls. Stone was thrown back from the explosion, the heat of the flames searing his skin, but he was mostly protected by the vines wrapped around him. Vanguard was thrown aside too, the vines loosening from Stone, and he used the moment of freedom to spray more bullets and get out of there. Dropping one more explosive from the backpack, he scanned the hallways. The elevator had to be close, right? More red flowers bloomed from the walls and the floor as Stone ran, each step harder than the last with the floor sucking at him. Yellow spores, like pollen, floated through the air, and he tried not to breathe it in as he ran. He turned another corner and... The elevator! Blake! Bright! He called. The door was open, but nobody was inside. Stone looked around fast, saw a body just off to the right. It was covered in red flowers, the yellow spores floating around it like a cloud. From the camo gear he could see, Stone knew it was Blake. Poor fucker. Get up here. Stone turned to face the voice. Bright's face peered through a hole in the top of the elevator. She was covered in blood and shaking. Bright. Get up here, she hissed, before it gets you. He didn't need to be told a third time. With Vanguard licking at his heels, he made for the elevator. What is that? Bright said, her eyes wild and terrified in the direction of Vanguard. Stone was in the elevator, feebly pressing the close button again and again, with the explosives detonator in his other hand. Once the doors were shut, the building would go bye-bye. The doors didn't budge. Bright was grabbing at Stone to pull him up, and Vanguard was at the threshold, the word eternal echoing through the corridors, when something attacked Vanguard from the side. Peering out the doors, Stone saw a horde of rats, red flowers blossoming from their spindly tails, clawing at Vanguard. But what had taken him down was something else entirely. Standing at 8 feet, with arms and legs like tree trunks and a chest that burst at the seams, was what Stone imagined had been a gorilla, a silverback. Subject X-16, Bright said, still trying to pull him into the elevator shaft. We saw it escape. It got Blake. Get these doors shut, Stone said, as X-16 and Vanguard raged at each other for dominance, before they notice us again. X-16 threw a punch at Vanguard, moss flying from its fist like putty and enveloping itself around the researcher. In turn, Vanguard's vine squeezed around the gorilla until thick red blood oozed from its body. The rats climbed Vanguard's vines, their hungry mouths forcing their way into whatever remained of her human fleshy body. The doors won't work, Bright said. The elevator is fucked. We have to climb. Stone climbed into the elevator shaft, using the fight between X-16 and Vanguard to his advantage. He didn't know why they were fighting. Didn't much care. Some of the rats had noticed them and were scurrying towards the elevator. They had to get out before it was too late. With a horrific roar, X-16 raced towards Vanguard, tackling the researcher into the moss-covered floor and pounding its face with giant fists. The red flowers sprouting from Vanguard's eyes fell and withered, but were co-opted back into the moss, only to regrow across the gorilla's back. Eternal. The words came from X-16's mouth as its fist pummeled the scientist's face into a mess of mashed skull and bones. With that, the researcher melted into the floor, blood and organs bubbling into the moss like quicksand. Red flowers bloomed in her place, and as Stone reached for the grate to seal the elevator shaft, he saw green veins pulsing in X-16's arms. It looked like the gorilla was sucking up Vanguard's remains through its fists, its muscles growing and growing. Holy fuck, he whispered. X-16 grunted at the sound, and jumped towards the elevator, twisting its horrible body to face them. Stone dropped the grate, sealing the gorilla and the rats on the other side. But one swift punch, and the metal grate soared through the air past him and Bright. Go, Stone said, pointing to the ladder in the elevator shaft. Climb. The ladder was feeble and rusted, but Bright grabbed tight and pushed herself up. She was injured, but Stone didn't see where or how. Instead, he fired down into the elevator, only to see X-16 grinning at him. It pulled itself up, swinging into the shaft with a thud. Stone had one more explosive to plant before he could throw the switch and blow the place to hell. As X-16 launched towards him, he ducked and rolled to the other side of the shaft, reached into the backpack for the last explosive, and set it. Lunging towards the ladder, kicking at the gorilla as it grabbed for him, Stone threw the backpack at the creature and pressed the detonator. He saw the flames before he heard the explosions, their force sending him flying through the shaft past Bright. He grabbed for the ladder, missed, and started to fall, but Bright wrapped her hand squarely around his forearm. Gotcha, and swung to safety. He climbed up next to her, and they stared down at the flames, wondering if it was over. X-16 leaped from the flames with a thunderous roar, and Stone pulled out his handgun from his side holster. He squeezed the trigger, it having no effect as the gorilla's giant hand squeezed around Bright's ankle. "Let me go!" she screamed. Stone fired again at the hands, hoping it would let go. Nothing. No reaction. He reached for his knife and jumped down to the gorilla's back, his arms tight around its neck. X-16 grunted and roared, pulling at Bright and swinging left and right to dislodge Stone. "Let her go!" Stone stabbed at the creature's neck over and over until ropey green and black blood spewed out across its hands and face. Fucking let her go! With one hand still on the ladder, X-16's other hand released Bright's ankle, and she climbed away from Stone, from X-16, from the flames. He stabbed again, this time in the chest, until the gorilla's insides were mushy and wet against Stone's skin. "Stone, come on!" Bright called down after him. She was nearly at the top, almost free, safe. At least he saved one of them, and that was good enough. He remembered Vanguard's words, "Don't let it touch you." Covered in X-16's blood, it was too late. He was going to be one of those things. Eternal or not, there was only one place for him. Drawing the knife across X-16's throat, he tugged as hard as he could on the weakening beast until they both fell back into the fire. As the flames consumed him, the last thing Stone saw was a red flower blossom on Bright's face as she smiled and waved down at him. "Fuck," he said, and let the flames take him. What did you think of this terrific short horror story? Comment or email redtreehousepod@gmail.com. A special thanks to David-Jack Fletcher for submitting this. And if you're listening, be sure to follow him on the socials. You can find the links to his social media pages and more in the show notes. As we close this episode of the Red Treehouse, be sure to join me next time as we continue exploring our strange and scary world. I'm your host, Will. Thanks for joining me in the Red Treehouse.